Why won't Biden debate Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? The Supreme Court makes several decisions. And did the DOJ interfere in the Hunter Biden probe? And more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. It's kind of like the Mars version of that movie Biodome with Pauly Shore. NASA sealed 4 people in an isolated chamber that simulates what it would be like living on Mars. They will remain there for 1 year. While being isolated for an entire year seems like it would be tough, given the state of the world and all the crazy things happening in it, a year without access to the internet seems more like a vacation now. You wouldn't have to feel that very specific variety of existential dread that comes from living in a world where Biodome with Pauly Shore is becoming a reality. And speaking of the internet, President Biden announced he wants every household in America to have access to high-speed internet by 2030. He said high-speed internet isn't a luxury anymore, it's becoming an absolute necessity. I agree. After all, the internet is the only place where you can get credible, high-quality, nonpartisan news you can rely on. $42.5 billion will be distributed to areas of the country where internet access is too slow or there's no internet access at all. No internet access or slow internet access. They must be living in places that use spectrum. 19 states will receive over $1 billion, including California, Texas, and Florida. So that's why there's so many crazy stories coming out of those states. It's because so many people in them don't have access to the internet. Bored folks with too much free time and imagination on their hands are dangerous. Case in point, the first U.S. case of malaria in 20 years were detected in Texas and Florida this week. That probably wouldn't have happened if people were safely inside watching video game speedruns 11 hours a day. You might call folks spending their lives watching YouTube and binging Netflix shows all day lazy. I call them people that are safe and not causing any trouble. You want more proof supporting this theory? The state receiving the smallest amount of money for creating high-speed internet infrastructure is, you guessed it, Delaware. 96% of the state has access to broadband speed internet. And for those that insist on going outside, they also have access to the gorgeous, malaria-free Cape Henlopen State Park. So whether indoors or outdoors, Delawareans don't get into as much trouble because there's always something to do. But something one Delawarean, Joe Biden, doesn't want to do is debate. Biden and his administration continue to ignore calls to debate Democratic primary challengers Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Marianne Williamson. The vice president of policy at the centrist think tank Third Way said this is because you have to earn your way to the debate stage. These folks are light years short of that. President Biden has important work to do, like managing our complicated relationship with China, growing the economy, and keeping the border secure. Keeping the border secure. That's the example they went with for things the Biden administration is doing a great job working on? That's like saying, as mayor of Flavortown, Guy Fieri is busy telling people to eat a balanced vegan diet. But some people on the left do want to see Biden take on his primary challengers. Nina Turner, a progressive Democrat that was a former member of the Ohio Senate, said she'd like to see Biden debate, but feels he won't because Biden risks being exposed for his administration not doing much to change the material conditions of everyday people in this country. He would be forced to answer to the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. Our platform says one thing and the corporate wing of the Democratic Party does the opposite thing. Republicans obviously don't like Biden, and progressive Democrats have been disappointed in some of his policies involving crime and climate change. Biden's approval rating is only 43%, and that's the highest it's been in almost a year. Biden has nothing to gain and everything to lose by debating. It's also true that incumbent presidents typically don't debate in the primaries. The last one to do that was Gerald Ford over 45 years ago. The Democratic National Committee seemingly intends to keep it that way, especially since Biden is about as popular as going to the dentist when the dentist is Bill Cosby. Despite essentially being ignored, Robert F. Kennedy is still pushing. And when I say pushing, I mean pushing weights. A video of him bench pressing went viral. And he followed it up with a video of him doing push-ups, saying he was getting in shape for his debates with President Biden. Because who needs policy when you got pecs? Honestly, why even debate at all? Elected officials should just be decided through bodybuilding competitions. That's how the U.S. ends up with President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho. Every year it becomes a little bit clearer Idiocracy wasn't a comedy but a documentary. More after the break. Welcome back. Fox News announced that Jesse Watters would take over permanently Tucker Carlson's 8 p.m. weeknight time slot. Yes, right-wing Chandler is being replaced with conservative Ross. I guess this is what they mean by Fox and Friends. CNN reported Fox has seen historically low ratings since ousting Carlson 2 months ago. Of course, this kind of feels like retaliation for when Fox reported CNN had near historically low ratings. And they wonder why nobody trusts mainstream media anymore when their stories just feel like the Spider-Man pointing meme saying, "No, you suck." Tucker Carlson's show was wildly popular, even though, at least according to Carlson's lawyers, it wasn't actual news. It was just exaggeration and non-literal commentary. That's what they successfully argued when he was sued for slander. Some in the mainstream media say Jesse Watters is a strange choice to replace Tucker Carlson, calling him a TV troll, which is itself an odd thing to say given that some thought Carlson was a troll too. Maybe Watters is in fact a perfect replacement. Or maybe Fox should go with a more entertaining host. Just imagine the ratings hearing Scar from The Lion King complain about woke culture. That's balanced journalism because what's more balanced than Big Cat? They always land on their feet. Well, except Mufasa that one time. The U.S. Department of Transportation is giving $1.7 billion in grants to transit agencies around the country to buy zero and low emission buses. That's a nice idea. But if they really want cleaner buses, maybe they can start with making the floors less sticky. On my morning commute, I shouldn't have to think, I hope that's just chocolate I'm stepping in. And it doesn't make me feel better knowing these buses are helping us get cleaner air when I still have to hold my breath the entire trip because the guy sitting next to me hasn't used deodorant since the Bush administration. The first one. The Supreme Court struck down a case by Louisiana Republicans who appealed a lower court ruling ordering them to redraw congressional district maps. This will lead to the creation of a second black majority district for the next election. A lawyer for the plaintiffs in this case said black voters in Louisiana have suffered one election under a congressional map that unlawfully dilutes their political influence. Thankfully, Louisiana is now on track to add an additional minority opportunity district in time for 2024, ensuring that black Louisianans are finally afforded their representation in the state's congressional delegation. The Supreme Court also rejected a case by North Carolina Republicans, arguing that state lawmakers have the authority to make rules for federal elections, including drawing district maps without oversight from state courts. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote, "State courts retain the authority to apply state constitutional restraints when legislators act under the power conferred upon them by the Elections Clause." These rulings must have surprised those who think the Supreme Court is now a fascist institution. Nothing says fascism like shooting down gerrymandering and tampering with elections to give one side an advantage. I'm glad to see the SCOTUS believes every American should have an equal voice and opportunity to see the people they voted for, regardless of party affiliation, completely ignore their interests and do whatever their donors and lobbyists tell them. That's how democracy works. The Supreme Court was busy this week. They also struck down affirmative action in college admissions, saying that race cannot be a factor in which students universities choose to enroll, and they must find other ways to increase diversity. I covered one of the initial lawsuits against Harvard University that led to these decisions almost 5 years ago. Check that video out for an in-depth look. The decision is sure to upset some, which is probably why the Supreme Court announced these decisions right before going on break until October. This was the judicial equivalent of walking away from an explosion without looking back at it. That probably won't help the court's near historically low approval ratings. So the Supreme Court, Joe Biden, CNN, Fox News, and Kamala Harris all have historically low ratings. The only person who's historically high right now is Snoop Dogg. And after the break, new laws on shooting down drones. Welcome back. A group of bipartisan legislators introduced a bill that would give various government agencies authority to detect and shoot down drones. According to Reuters, the push was sparked by concerns about drones in places, including presidential inaugurations and high-profile sporting events such as the Super Bowl and the Olympics. But there might have been some other reasons as well. Congresswoman Chrissy Houlihan, one of the representatives behind this legislation, said, "We really have not enough legislation that protects the American people from really catastrophic effects of a drone strike." What are you talking about? If the Chinese spy balloon story taught us anything, it's that the military would take care of it in a prompt, effective manner, just as soon as it crosses the entire continental U.S. and drifts over the ocean. What I want to know is, when will citizens be allowed to shoot down drones? Did you know that's illegal? Unless, of course, you're Marvel Studios. Glad to see they can still successfully shoot something, because the last 4 years of films and TV shows they shot were all wild misses. Speaking of things being shot down, the idea that all the investigations into Hunter Biden were nothing burgers. A whistleblower in the IRS said that Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who was in charge of investigating Hunter Biden, told FBI and IRS officials he was denied special counsel status and denied authority to charge the president's son outside of Delaware. The whistleblower said the District of Columbia U.S. Attorney, appointed by Joe Biden, wouldn't let Weiss charge Hunter in his district. This excluded Hunter from facing tax charges from 2014 and 2015 involving Burisma, the Ukrainian company at the center of an alleged corruption scheme that could involve Joe Biden himself. The whistleblower said the purposeful exclusion of the 2014 and 2015 years sanitized the most substantive criminal conduct and concealed material facts. In other Hunter Biden news, recently released text messages show Hunter implied his father was next to him while making his shady Chinese deals. Biden denied he was with his son when he texted the Chinese company. But who knows, maybe he just forgot. Kind of like he forgot who Putin is at war with.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home.
Biden actually has a point. I mean, you can't say Putin is winning the war in Iraq, now can you? The whole Hunter situation is certainly suspicious. Not helping those suspicion is the fact that Joe Biden joked about selling state secrets while meeting with the Prime Minister of India.
I started off without you, and I sold a lot of state secrets and a lot of very important things that we shared. Now, all kidding aside, look.
Joe, maybe don't crack jokes about a potentially criminal investigation you're currently involved in. That'd be like if during his trial, Jeffrey Dahmer offered jurors beef jerky and winked. Not helping your case here, man. One reason the claims by the IRS whistleblower are a big deal is that they contradict sworn testimony from U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland. Garland refuted these claims, saying Mr. Weiss was appointed by President Trump as the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and assigned this matter during the previous administration and would be permitted to continue his investigation and to make a decision to prosecute any way in which he wanted to and in any district in which he wanted to. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy said that if it's true that the Department of Justice interfered in Weiss's probe to help Hunter, that he would open an impeachment inquiry.
By July 6th, because of the allegations from the IRS, because of the whistleblowers and the DOJ, Garland, what he is saying and what David Weiss are saying privately are two different things.
Right.
And if it comes true what the IRS whistleblower is saying, we're going to start impeachment inquiries on the Attorney General.
The White House spokesperson responded in a statement saying, Speaker McCarthy and the extreme House Republicans are proving they have no positive agenda to actually help the American people on the issues most important to them and their families. Yeah, like calling Republicans looking into possible corruption involving the president extreme. That's what's important to American families. Who needs to worry about inflation affecting your ability to buy food for your family when you can dine on scoring points against political rivals? So the 2024 presidential election will likely be a Republican candidate facing multiple criminal indictments against a Democratic candidate whose son is under investigation for corruption that he may also be involved in. Suddenly, President Dwayne Elizondo Mountain Dew Camacho doesn't seem like such a terrible option. I wonder if there's room for me to join those NASA crew members in isolation. Taking a year off seems nice. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/America Uncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube's censorship and demonetization. You can also set a monthly limit. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.